Hello, I'm Steve Buser, Professor Emeritus of Finance at the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University, continuing with a series of discussions on the current state of the U.S. economy. Where we left off was had defined the financial problem, the financial crisis, if you will, and it turned to the issue of what the federal government can and should be doing in order to try to end this problem and move the economy forward. Well, there are several policy tools available to the federal government. There's a traditional monetary policy in which the Federal Reserve would attempt to lower interest rates. Unfortunately, interest rates are already at all-time lows. The Federal Reserve has in effect used that policy, and we've played all of our cards, or virtually all of our cards. We might see a further reduction in interest rates, but even Ben Bernanke, who's chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, has indicated that even if he were to push interest rates lower yet, would not expect much positive result from that. So essentially, the monetary policy has to be on the sidelines for this particular economic crisis. Then there's the traditional fiscal policy, where the government would deliberately spend money in excess of tax revenues that it's collected in order to prop up the economy. Unfortunately, as with monetary policy, we've already played this card extensively as well. In fact, the federal government has been running a record level of deficits as it continues to borrow more and more money to fund ever-growing needs. The new administration has indicated that it might still want to ramp up this effort, so we might see even an extended effort to spend and have government programs beyond traditional measures as a means of both taking care of essential features in the economy, but also to stimulate the general economic effort. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Third on the list is a set of non-traditional bailout programs that we've been experiencing. These programs have been targeted at various entities. We've mentioned AIG was bailed out, an insurance company. We've had a bailout program for first large banks. The 9 largest banks were combined and had a blanket program for them, and then another set of banks were identified. We've had extensive discussions now about whether the 3 largest U.S. automakers should receive a bailout funding, and discussions continue as we speak. These programs can help, but for them to be effective, there's something called a best practices protocol that's been developed by economists who have studied 129 financial crises around the world just since 1977. And what they've discovered was that blanket programs, such as the ones that the U.S. has applied, say all 9 banks or all major automobiles or all other classes of institutions, are not effective. Because what you need and what the private sector needs and is desperately looking for in this situation is direction. Which banks are healthy? Which banks have problems? Which companies are healthy? Which companies have problems? And until they get resolution on those issues, until they get transparency on those issues, the private sector dollars are not going to follow the federal dollars. This has been proven again and again. As I said, in the study of 129 financial crises, the private sector is not going to blindly follow the government into what might be a terminal situation on the investment side. So for these types of programs to be successful, they can't be blanket programs. For example, suppose the government had called in the 9 largest banks and said to them, we're going to fund at most 8 of you. We want to see your best proposals. We want to see what you would do with the money we gave you, and we will design a different program for each one of you. They could have reinforced that with a recertification program, which has been employed in many other countries. That's where you come in and the bank is examined, and if it's found to be healthy, it's certified as healthy, its debts are guaranteed, but it's a signal for the private sector. You can trust this bank, you can invest in this bank, and we will even insure your investment. On the other hand, if the bank is found to have deficient capital, you might purchase preferred stock to beef up the capital and then certify it. On the other hand, some banks, they say, I'm sorry, it's too far gone, we'll have to close you. That's the regime that's been proven successful. I think we could have done the same thing with the U.S. autos. Bring them in and say, we want to hear your best plan, we're going to fund at most 2 of you. I think it would have been a very different response. Instead, the auto companies came in with initially no plan, and then tried to cook up a plan in a relatively short period that was just not been very persuasive. So while we're hopeful that these bailout programs will be restructured in line with what we call best practices protocol, that's yet to be seen, and that's all for today, I'm afraid.